Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and coming to you from the UK, and today is Saturday the 20th of April. I had to think about that one. April 2024. I'm so glad you're joining me today, and if you've been watching for a long time, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. This is a channel mostly about knitting, sometimes also spinning and crochet. I try to do this sort of rundown of what I've been knitting every week if we're lucky. Sometimes it's a bit longer between episodes. I live here in the UK with my husband and 3.5-year-old son. We are originally from Germany but have been here for 3.5 years. Pretty much as long as my son is old. So let's just dive right into some knitting. Because remember last week I told you I want to finish at least 2 projects before we go on holiday. It was 2 weeks to go before our holiday. Now it is 1 week to go, and I'm wearing one. I have finished my Lento number 5. So this is of course the Lento sweater by Jonna Hietala, who I think now is Jonna Helen. Although that is just something I've heard, I don't know. By the way, apologies for the slightly wet hair. My family has just left to go grocery shopping, and I just had to take the chance to record. So hair is still like 20% wet. We'll just go with it. Anyways, I am wearing my Lento. I have finished it, and I do really, really like it. I was surprised by the fact that basically I have made a couple of these, and my goal was to make a carbon copy of this one. This is my Lento number 1. It is a bit pilly, but it is beautiful. This is my favorite Lento out of all of them. I wear this all the time. In fact, I wore this to work last week, and I should probably depill it, but this is the first time I'll be depilling it, and I've been wearing this for at least a year, and this was so lovely and drapey. This used Knit Picks palette paired with a silk mohair from Nori Yarns. I believe this is Knit Picks palette in the colorway Cosmopolitan, although I'm never 100% sure. But anyways, I wanted to recreate this, so I'm doing the same size, same needles. I also used Knit Picks palette in the Iris Heather colorway, I believe. And I also held it with a silk mohair. In this case, I used mohair from Rico. So I think it's Rico Essentials mohair. I don't think the Nori Yarns mohair, I'm not sure if she's stocking it anymore. She has a couple of balls left on Etsy, I think, in some colorways. But I think she may be phasing it out, which would be a shame because I really love it. So this is Rico mohair. I do really like it. It's turned out really, really well. I sort of made it to fit like my pink one, except somehow this one has way more positive ease. So this one is a bit more fitted, which I do like it. I think it's quite a sort of classic shape. It'll be good for work. It is just more, it has some positive ease, but it doesn't have tons of positive ease. So I wonder if it's just going to slowly grow over time, or maybe my gauge just changed. Both are possible. I am happy with mine. I think for the next one I might go a size up, or I might recheck my gauge. Just because I love the oversizedness of my first one. I am very happy with this one. As you can tell, it's got this beautiful sort of heathering going on. It's definitely a lilac-y gray. It doesn't read neutral to me, but it's also obviously not a pop of color, and I think this will be really useful to have. So it is done. I did 3/4 length sleeves. I made them quite fitted because I often like to have fitted sleeves with a oversized body. And it is done. So project 1 finished. The other project that I wanted to finish are my husband's socks. So I think I had one finished. I was on the toe of the first one last week, and ta-da! I have finished them. So again, very happy about this. I basically stopped all of my other projects and just focused on these 2 projects for most of last week. These are 68 stitch socks for my husband, who likes sort of shorter legs on his socks, though they're not crazy long. I think I only used 56 grams of yarn. So that was quite interesting, considering these are a size 44 European foot. Plain vanilla socks. I used Das Mondschaf, who is my favorite German indie dyer, and this was from her Breaking Bad club in the colorway I Am the One Who Knocks. So as you can tell, they are plain vanilla socks. The funny thing I did is I was so proud of myself for finishing the first one, and I immediately went to cast on the second one, and oh yeah, it's this one. Can you tell? I knitted down to here until I realized that I had cast on 64 stitches rather than 68 because 64 is my usual go-to cast on number for my own socks and most of my sort of family and friends socks, and I just forgot. I just went on autopilot and I cast on the wrong amount of stitches. So I knit down to here, cuff down, and I was not going to rip this out. So I just increased, and it is going to be around my husband's feet, ankles or whatever, leg. It'll be fine. Yeah, I just thought that was hilarious. So they're not exactly matching, but they will be absolutely fine. So they're also done, which makes me extremely happy. And I have been craving so much sock knitting, but I'm trying to hold myself back because on holiday I'm planning to knit all the socks, all the small projects. I showed the leftover yarn to my son, who originally had wanted socks out of this as well. But he has decided he wants a hat out of the leftovers, which I think is a great idea because if you remember, I knit him a very bright red ear flap hat using a Post Soho free pattern last autumn, I think. And that has been so worth it because I can just spot him anywhere, especially now that he's a bit older and like runs off at the park, or you know what little kids do. It is really handy to have a very colorful hat. So I will gladly make this kid a neon yellow hat, and then when he starts school next autumn, at least I'll be able to spot him. So I think I'm also going to take the leftovers with me on holiday and just make him a hat. Yeah, so those are my 2 finished objects. And I also said if I do finish those 2, ideally what I should finish is my mini mock neck tee. So let's talk mini mock neck tee. This bloody tank top. Excuse my swearing. This is really getting on my nerves, and I may go on a rant about this. And this poor mini mock neck tank hasn't done anything to deserve my rage. It's been fine. I'm just not enjoying it. So to bring it back to where we started, essentially, this is the mini mock neck tank by, is it Jessie May? I'm blanking on it. I hope it is. Anyways, you will be able to find it if you either go to my Ravelry, which I always link down below, or just put in mini mock neck tank on Ravelry. This is a tank top. It is very popular and I've been on the fence about it for a while. Some of them, they go very high up and I never know if I like that. But I saw someone on Married at First Sight Australia, yes, wear a very similar top in a bright pink, and I saw it. I was like, yes, this is the universe telling me I need to make this top, and I'll just make it once, and either I love it, in which case I'll make 15 more. This could be like my summer lentil, or maybe I don't love it. So I started this, and it was quite, I don't know, I always find tanks so fiddly. It was so many it's not difficult, but you just have to focus on all these little parts until you finally join it in the round. And I did make some modifications, which I'll talk about in a second. But obviously once I joined it all in the round, it was just very, very plain stockinette on small needles with fingering weight yarn. So this is just turning into a quite labor-intense project. I'm finding it quite slow, But I have picked it up again, so this is where I was when I started knitting on it, I think yesterday. So I've made a good, let's say 3 inches of progress on the body. And I was really unsure about the fit for a long time with this. So I sort of put off putting in my neckline, but I finally did. I tried it on again and it does fit really well. So I did the neckline last night, and let's talk about modifications. I've made a few. First off, my row gauge is off, and the pattern doesn't really give you that many schematics. It does give you a couple of numbers that you can check against, but I wish there was more of a schematic and measurements to go by, but there wasn't. So I just sort of improvised. So I made it a bit longer, like on the front strap here before the increases, to just give myself a bit more space in the armhole. And then I still felt like it wasn't enough, so I also tried very roughly to make it a bit longer, which was weird with the increases, but I do now have a sufficiently large armhole, because there's nothing I hate more than if a top rides up too high. It just becomes unwearable to me and I hate it. So I picked up the stitches. I found the instructions a little bit unclear, but I looked at a couple of people's Ravelry pages and worked it out. And I sort of went for a medium length rib, so I didn't make it long. I think a couple of them, they go up to 4 centimeters of rib, so it's really high up. So I just made, what is this, like maybe 2 centimeters. And then, because I hate binding off in rib for necklines, I always think it doesn't look neat, and obviously it needs to be stretchy. So what I did in the end is I bound off on the wrong side, because I find this edge much nicer than the edge that you get when you bind off on the right side. So I basically just turned it around, and then what I do for all of my rib bind offs is actually a tip that I got from a viewer 5, 6, 7 years ago. I think her name was Sabine, so if you're still watching, hi! And her tip was to use the Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off, but only on the purl stitches. So you use a regular bind off for every knit stitch that you get to, but you do the yarn over for the Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off on the purl stitch. And I think I have nailed it on this one. I think this is nice. It looks nice without looking like, you don't want it to flare, you don't want it to look weird. I think this sits really nicely. So I am very happy with this. And now that I've put in this neckline, I should be able to just work on the body, but it's just so much fabric. I've forgotten the gauge, but it's a relatively fine gauge, and it just takes a long time to knit. And like, it feels like I've made a substantial part of a garment, but then every time I try it on, it's like, it's just there. Like, I need so much more length than this, because I don't want this to be super cropped. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna push myself to work on this, but I don't see myself just working on this for the next week, because I think this will drive me nuts. The yarn that I'm using for this, by the way, is Knit Picks palette. Again, this is the fuchsia colorway. This is just some yarn I had in stash, and I didn't know what else to use, so I just went for this. And it is pink. It's not the pink that I wanted. In an ideal world, I would like a much more Barbie pink, but this is just sort of my muslin, and if I do end up loving it, I can always make more of these. Right now, do I feel like I want to make more of these? Probably not, but who knows? We'll see. So this is the mini mock neck tank, and then I have also worked a tiny bit on my strange brew, which is knit out of my handspun. So the colorful is my handspun, paired with a German yarn, and I'm dropping stitches. This is not good. I should be picking up stitches, not dropping them. The German yarn is from Finkhof Wolle. It's a German merino yarn, but don't let that fool you. A German merino is quite toothy. I hope this is going to soften up a little bit with washing, but it does look pretty. I do really like it. So I've just been, going round and round on the body. And I'm almost finished with my first ball out of 3 that I have for the main color. So this is about a sport weight. I don't think I'm playing yarn chicken, but I also don't think I'll have much left. So I think once I finish this ball, I might at least get started on the sleeves. I mean, ideally I want it to have long sleeves, and I also would like this to be relatively long, but I might just knit, maybe I'll do both sleeves to like 3/4 length and then just put them on stitch holders, and then I have more of an idea of how much yarn I have left for the body and so on. But yeah, Strange Brew by Tin Can Knits. And then finally I have a new project, because of course I finished 2 projects and I needed to cast on something. And this is crochet. So you may remember this. Maybe you don't remember this. I'm not sure if I talked about this. This has been sitting on my shelf looking at me for a long time. This is another cake of puff flower crochet yarn. Not sponsored. This is bought with my own money. But I mentioned this over Christmas. I did like a very colorful rainbow blanket. In fact, it's right here. So I did this blanket out of one of these cakes. You may remember this. This is a 1500 meter cake of yarn, and this is the sort of size of blanket that I got out of it. So it's not huge, but it's not tiny. It's not a baby blanket. And I fell in love with their pastel rainbow, which is this one. And this one was the biggest yarn cake I could find because I did want a bigger blanket. So this, I think, is 1600 and something, almost 1700. Yeah, 1695 meters, it says, of pastel rainbow. It is acrylic yarn, but I just find these so fun to work. And this has just been sat on my living room shelf looking at me because I think it's really pretty. And I always knew this was going to become another granny square blanket. So I've decided to just cast it on because I might as well. So I cast this on the day before yesterday. It's looking a bit messy, but I think the further I go with it, the nicer it'll become. And obviously at some point I will wash and block this. But yeah, I've made a start. The colors are not my usual, I will say that. I mean, I picked them. I can't blame anyone by myself. I think I like it. I hope I like it. I'm not 100% sure, but it's really fun. I'm just going to crochet my little heart out. And as you can tell, I'm doing a giant granny square. I am turning every row to prevent any kind of skewing either way, and just letting the yarn do the work. So yeah, that's all I'm doing. I'm using a 4mm crochet hook, and the yarn is knotted, and I've not had any problems with the knots. I'm not sure. I assume they're magic knots. Maybe there's something special to them, but they seem to hold really well. So as soon as the color changes, I just let it happen. I don't do anything fancy, and there are no ends to weave in, no yarn to manage. And yeah, I do really enjoy it. And the fun bit is that these colors work out so as you're increasing the stripes, like with this one. Usually you would get skinnier stripes, but somehow she does her magic and it still looks really, really good, even as you have a massive circumference. So yeah, I started that, and those are my knitting projects for the week. So what I have left to talk to you about is just random house and craft and life stuff. So if you're here for that, then strap in. And if you're not, that's absolutely fine. I may or may not be back next week, and then we'll be on holiday. So hopefully see you next weekend. If not, it'll just be a little while, and then hopefully I'll be back with lots and lots of new projects. All right, so life and craft and house. It has been a week. I mentioned briefly last week that we had another leak, which was a lie. It was one leak when I mentioned it to you, and then we found another one the same day. If you haven't been following along, our house is always an adventure. We bought it a year ago and we're still finding like all the little things that are, I don't want to say wrong with it, it's just life. So we noticed a while ago that we had a weird like patch on our one of our inside walls. It's like, where is that coming from? So we sort of took it off and decided to watch it, and it came back, and we realized last week that the wall was wet, and it was the wall opposite our bathroom, our bathtub to be exact. So obviously that was a likely candidate. And then last week after recording the podcast, I noticed that on our roof terrace there was a little bit of like water dripping out of our outdoor hose, which was turned off. I was like, why is this happening? So we checked it out. We're like, oh yeah, it is leaking. We need to get our plumber back. So it'll be a 2-in-1 job. And then I made the mistake of touching it because I wanted to have a closer look. And of course it exploded in my face. So we had to like turn off the outdoor mains or whatever you call that. And yeah, it was quite funny. It is funny now. I didn't find it funny at the time. So then there were 2 leaks. But luckily, we got both of them fixed this past week. It's been a busy week, but yeah, it turns out I actually correctly identified that our bathtub overflow was broken, which was fine and easily fixable. But when we finally got in there, which was a bit of a adventure to even get the paneling off and all of that, there was a live wire. There was a live cable that someone had at some point just cut, done nothing to it except stick some tape over it, which of course had come off. And there was a live wire after right under our like flooded, damp, wet, leaky metal tub, which is terrifying. Honestly, I felt so sick when I found that out. And so luckily we got all of that like fixed and made safe and tucked away now. And we are going to get an electrician to check over the entire house after we get back, because I've just had too many bad experiences with wonky electrics in our house. I'm not sure how long that's been there. I mean, it could have been there for 10 years or maybe even before our previous owners bought the house. I mean, no one knows, but that was quite scary. So anyways, we got that fixed, and now of course it all looks a mess. We're just gonna let it all dry out and then put some kind of new paneling on, and then eventually we have to rip off the wallpaper where the wall was wet on the other side, which luckily we left the wallpaper. It's this really ugly like bright red rose wallpaper, and if you don't know, our house was sort of covered in weird flowery wallpaper when we moved in. They called it the Laura Ashley house, which should tell you enough. I did not love it. So we've left the red wallpaper because it's in a place where we didn't really care. We just put a big bookcase in there. But obviously now that has to go, and we need to do all kinds of things, which I'm not even thinking about that right now. But our son got really upset because he loves red. Red and rainbows are his favorite colors. And he wanted his snag, which isn't his snag, but he's right, his toys are stored in there, red. And we said, no, we are not painting another wall red, it's not happening. So then he decided he wants a red wall in his room, which is fine, except we just painted his room blue last year. So luckily, he was convinced that maybe we could do him a rainbow room makeover because he loves rainbows. So I ordered some like massive wall sticker. I think it's like 2 meters 40 or something. I think it's 95 inches. And so I spent my morning today making his room into a rainbow room, and luckily he loves it. And it was a little bit painful because the wall sticker came in a million parts and I had to cut them even into more parts just to be able to fit them by myself. So that was a little bit of a hassle, but I think painting it would have been worse. Painting a rainbow, just getting all those different colors would have been worse and cost more money. So I hope he's gonna be happy with his rainbow room for a while. So yeah, those are the main house news, I think. We also have been doing some like damp proofing, and we've been playing with bitumen paint and all these fun things. But yeah, I'm hoping we're sort of future proofing, like everything we find now and fixed now. Hopefully, at least it won't, break again. Like at least then we'll know. I feel we have been doing a lot to the house, considering it looked quite good when we bought it. And we're just slowly finding all the things that maybe aren't that great, despite having a survey and anything done to it. Like, we weren't cheated, this was fine, this is just normal stuff. But I feel like the more we do, obviously, then we know what's there, we know how things work, we've seen them done, so hopefully we are learning lots. So yeah, that's what's been happening both in my crafty life and my life. Work has been busy, and obviously I think I was hoping to sort of slowly fade out before I go on annual leave, but no, it's just going to be full on until we leave, but that's fine. I've started mentally making lists for what I want to take when we go away. I have lots of knitting plans, which should be exciting. Essentially, I want to knit all the socks, all the accessories. I want to knit 3 stash. I have another lento planned. I did take a lento to knit last year, but I haven't decided if I want to bring garment projects or if I just want to bang out a ton of accessory projects. That is to be decided. So yeah, that's all that's been going on. I'm just going to enjoy the quiet for another maybe 20 minutes if I'm lucky. And then I should, let's say 50-50. I may be able to record before we leave. It just depends how the packing and everything goes. So I'm hoping to see you guys before we leave and maybe show you sort of what I'm planning to take with me, because I think that's always really, really fun. But if that doesn't happen, I will see you when we get back. Thank you so much for watching my episodes. If you're coming back, I really appreciate those of you whose names I see popping up regularly. Do tell me what you're knitting or just crafting on. And wherever you are in the world, I hope you are healthy, you are safe, you have some lovely yarn to play with. And I will talk to you very, very soon. Bye!